We have a need to search out our Hebraic roots to discover what truth has been altered. This intensive study, still in progress since 2007, has gathered scattered and hidden pearls of knowledge that prove to be truth and put them together in these series of teachings. Not everything that a particular ministry teaches is wrong, but on the other hand, neither is everything taught by man entirely correct, including my teachings. Only one, and that is Yeshua, was truth incarnate. His original words were entirely correct always. Not everybody has all the truth, but we are allowed to study, discern, and glean the truth from those around us. Shalom, my friends. This is Deception Part 6. We'll now briefly examine the proof of our claims. What we know at this stage has been added. Communion. Breaking of bread, the Jewish understanding. Baruch atah Yahweh Eloheinu melech haolam hamezid ikarim min haaretz. Blessed are you, Yahweh our God, King of the universe, who has brought forth bread from the earth. At the beginning of the family meal, this blessing is said as the bread is broken. The blessing is referred to as the breaking of bread. Sharing meals is a very important part of Jewish family and community life. So important that special blessings are said at the start and the end of the meal. The term breaking bread is mentioned several times in the New Testament writings. It is important that we take a look at what is meant in Jewish life to break bread. The breaking of bread is something which is done only in the context of a meal. In fact, the Talmud, the Jewish oral law, uses the term only in reference to the blessing at the start of the meal. The one who says the blessings over the bread is referred to as the one who breaks bread. At every meal it was and is the custom to have bread and wine. The blessings over the bread and wine are said at the beginning of the meal. The one who recited the blessing did so while literally breaking the bread. We can see that the Jewish terminology breaking bread simply refers to the blessing at the start of the meal or to the meal itself. In the days of Yeshua, a communal meal was a common practice, particularly among the Jewish sect of the Essenes. The Essenes, a community living mostly in the Jewish Judean hills, were known for their absolute community of goods. Those who came into the community had to give all they had. There was one purse for all, and all the members had expenses, clothing and food in common. In the second chapter of the book of Acts, many of the believers in Messiah began to follow the Essene lifestyle, selling their belongings, having all things in common and breaking bread, sharing communal meals from house to house. And all believers were together and had all things in common, and those who had possessions sold them and divided to each man according to his need. And they went to the temple every day with one accord, and at home they broke bread and received food with joy and a pure heart. Acts 2:46. With the advent of Christianity in the 4th century CE, a communion ritual was introduced as part of Christian worship. This ritual involved the reconstructing of the sacrifice of Christ, where the worshippers partook of bread and wine, which represent the body and blood of their God. Now within Judaism, there is no such concept as communion, nor has there ever been. There is no biblical equivalent to Eucharist or communion ritual. In the 4th century CE, the Roman Church officially rejected all Jewish custom and law, stating that Christianity had nothing in common with the Jews. In order to accommodate pagans into the new Roman Empire religion, the practices and rituals of the mystery religions were modified to suit Christianity. Let us take a look at the origins of the communion ritual in the mystery religions of Babylon and Greece. The ritual of communion was a ritual called omophagia. In the Greek mysteries, Dionysus, or Bacchus, the Babylonian counterpart, was one of the main deities. His birth was celebrated on December the 25th. He was the god of wine. His followers, called Bacchantes, celebrated the communion ritual of Dionysus by crushing the fruit of the vine and drinking the scarlet lifeblood pressed from its flesh. They also dismembering the animal which represented Dionysus, the bull, and worshippers would tear the bull to pieces with their hands and teeth. By practicing omophagia, this dismembering of the sacrificial victim and eating the flesh and drinking the blood, it was believed the worshipper absorbed the nature or life of the god into his own. Thus, having consumed the flesh of the bull and the wine representing Dionysus, The worshippers took on his power and character. This was a communion in the God's own body and blood. To become like the God, they had to consume the God. The 2nd century church took this concept and adapted it to Jesus. For this reason, the miracle of communion was the symbol of Jesus. The bread and wine were believed to be literally become his flesh and blood. This is called transubstantiation and is a belief of Catholics to this day. Although the Protestant Church rejected transubstantiation, they kept the communion ritual, declaring that in the bread and wine the believer partakes spiritually in the flesh and blood of the God. There are 3 main doctrines of the communion rite within Christianity. The Roman Catholic Church teaches that the wafer and the wine of the sacrament become the actual flesh and blood of Christ, transubstantiation. The Lutheran Church teaches that the flesh and blood of Christ is consumed in and with the bread and wine. This doctrine is called consubstantiation. The Calvinists say that the bread and wine give those who partake of them a spiritual participation of the flesh and blood of Christ. It has been a common practice of non-Catholic denominations to simply spiritualize Catholic doctrines. However, the belief still remains that by either literally or spiritually partaking in the body and blood of the God, the believer receives the very life of the God. In the Jewish faith, there is no ritual where a worshipper literally eats a symbol of God in order to receive him. We are transformed only by the Ruach, Spirit of Yahweh, in the observance of the commandments. If this is the case, then what did Yeshua mean when he used the symbolism of bread and wine and flesh and blood in reference to himself? Let's begin by taking a look at Yeshua's words while partaking of his last meal with his disciples before he died. He took bread and gave thanks and broke it and gave it to them and said, "This is my body, which is given for your sake. This do in remembrance of me." Luke 22:19. Yeshua was using unleavened bread, signifying the sinlessness of Messiah. The Torah clearly states that we are to remember our redemption by eating unleavened bread at Passover. This is the only time at which we are commanded by Yahweh to do this. Yeshua is the unleavened bread. For this reason, he said, "Do this in remembrance of me." Most often at a communion service, leavened bread is used. Leaven represents sin. Messiah is the sinless one. It is the anti-Messiah who is called the man of sin. When the term breaking bread is used in the New Testament writings, it is either in context of the Passover Seder or the weekly community meal. Having said this, what was Yeshua referring to when he said, "Unless you eat my body and drink my blood, you have not life within you"? Yeshua's very words are found in Jewish Kabbalistic writings, keeping in mind that Yeshua is the living Torah who came down from heaven. Let us read the following excerpt in that context. The Torah is clothed in the soul and intellect of a person and is absorbed in them and is called bread and food of the soul. But just as physical bread nourishes the body as it is absorbed into internally, in his very inner self, where it is transformed into blood and flesh of his flesh, whereby he lives and exists, so too it is with the knowledge of the Torah and its comprehension of the souls of the person who studies it well, with the concentration of his intellect until the Torah is absorbed by his intellect and is united with it and they become one. This becomes nourishment for the soul and its inner life from the giver of life. The blessed Ein Sof, the eternal God, is the meaning of the verse, "Yea, thy Torah is within my inward parts." In John 6:47-57, Yeshua said the following, referring to himself as Torah. "I am the living bread, Torah, that came down from heaven. If anyone eats this bread, Torah, he will live forever. This bread is my flesh." Yeshua is the Torah in the flesh, which I will give for the life of the world. Yeshua said to them, "I tell you the truth, unless you can eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood," Yeshua is fully consumed Torah, "you have no life in you. Whoever eats my flesh and drinks my blood has eternal life, and I will raise him up on the last day. For my flesh, Torah, is real food, and my blood, Torah, is real drink. Whoever eats my flesh and drinks my blood remains in me and I in him. Just as the living Father sent me and I live because of the Father, so the one who feeds on me, Torah, will live because of me." Yeshua is the fullness of wisdom, knowledge and understanding. is the full comprehension, fulfillment of Torah. If we fully absorb Torah so that it becomes to us as flesh and blood, we will have eternal life. As the sages say, the scrolls of the Torah may be destroyed, but its spirit is immortal and indestructible. The Ruach will quicken the spirit of the Torah within the righteous dead, and they will be resurrected. Rabbi Abraham Heschel says in God in Search of Man, the goal is for man to be an incarnation of the Torah, for the Torah to be in man and his soul to be in his deeds. We can see how important it is to understand the words of Yeshua and the writers of the New Testament from a totally Jewish perspective. If we do not do so, we will in fact give the wrong interpretation or abolish their words. On the other hand, by interpreting the New Testament writings in the context of Jewish thought, terminology and practice, we will interpret correctly or fulfill the words of Messiah and his disciples. All this is from an article by Luana Fabry, Breaking of Bread, the Jewish Understanding. Let's read some scriptures. Matthew 4:4. But answering he said, it has been written, man shall not live by bread alone, but on every word, Torah, that proceeds out of the mouth of Yahweh. So basically there, it's quite plain. The Torah is our food, spiritual food. John 1:1-4. In the beginning was the word, Torah, and the word Torah was with Elohim, and the word Torah was Elohim. He was in the beginning with Elohim. Everything existed through his hands, and without him not even one thing exists of the things which have existed. In him was life, and the life was the light of the men. John 6:32-63. Then Yeshua said to them, truly, truly, I say to you, Moses has not given you the bread out of heaven, but my Father gives you the true bread, Torah, out of heaven. For his bread, Torah, that of Elohim, is he who came down from heaven and gives life to the world. Then they said to him, Master, always give us this bread. And Yeshua said to them, I am the bread of life, Torah. The one coming to me will not at all hunger, and the one believing into me will not thirst never. But I said to you that you also have seen me and did not believe. All that the Father gives to me shall come to me, and the one coming to me I will in no way cast out. 38. For I have come down out of heaven, not that I should do my will, but the will of him who sent me. And this is the will of the Father sending me, that of all that he has given me I shall not lose, and from it but it shall raise him up in the last day. And this is the will of the one sending me, that everyone seeing the Son and believing into him should have everlasting life. And I will raise him up at the last day. Then the Jews murmured about him, because he said, I am the bread, Torah, coming down out of heaven. And they said, is this not Yeshua, the son of Joseph, of whom we know the father and the mother? How does this one now say, I have come down out of heaven? Then Yeshua answered and said to them, do not murmur one with another. No one is able to come to me unless the Father who sent me draws him, and I will raise him up the last day. For it is written in the prophets that all of them will be taught of Elohim. Everyone who hears, therefore, and learns from the Father comes to me. It is not man that man can see the Father. Rather, he who is from Elohim is he who sees the Father. Truly, truly, I say to you, the one believing into me has everlasting life. I am the bread of life, Torah. Your fathers ate the manna in the wilderness and died. This is the bread, Torah, coming down out of heaven, that anyone who eat of it and not die. I am the living bread, Torah, that came down from heaven. If anyone eats of this bread, Torah, he will live forever. And indeed the bread, Torah, which I will give is my flesh, which I will give for the life of the world. See, when we insert the word Torah there, it gives us a new revelation, how important it is to study, eat, read, contemplate, concentrate on the Torah. Then the Jews argued with one another, saying, how can this one give us his flesh to eat? Then Yeshua said to them, truly, truly, I say to you, except you eat the flesh of the Son of Man, Torah, and drink his blood, Torah, you do not have life in yourselves. The one partaking of my flesh, Torah, and drinking of my blood, Torah, has everlasting life, and I will raise him up the last day. For my body, Torah, is truly food, and my blood, Torah, is truly drink. He who eats my body, Torah, and drinks my blood, Torah, abides in me, and I in him. Even as the living Father sent me, and I live through the Father, also the one partaking me, even that one will live through me. This is the bread, Torah, which came down out of heaven, not as your fathers ate the manna and died. The one partaking of this bread, Torah, will live forever. He said these things, teaching in a synagogue in Capernaum. Then many of his disciples, having heard, they said, "This word is hard, who is able to hear it?" But knowing himself that his disciples were murmuring about this, Yeshua said to them, "Does this offend you? What if you see the Son of Man ascending to the place where he was before? It is the Spirit that gives life, the flesh does not profit nothing. The words which I speak to you are spirit and are life." What were the words he spoke? The Torah. John 1:14. And the word Torah became flesh and tabernacled amongst us, and we beheld his glory, glory as of an only begotten one from the Father, full of grace and of truth. Acts 2:42. And they were continuing steadfastly in the doctrines of the apostles, and in fellowship, and in the breaking of bread, and in prayers. Breaking of bread, mealtime. Acts 2:46. And continuing steadfastly with one mind day by day in the sanctuary, and breaking bread from house to house, they shared food in gladness and simplicity of heart. He basically went from house to house, eating meals, breaking bread. Acts 27. And on one of the Sabbaths, the disciples, having been assembled to have a fellowship meal together, being about to depart on the next morning, Paul reasoned to them, and he continued his speech until midnight. So have we not been deceived with this communion? It's not the communion. Communion doesn't save us. Communion does nothing for us, basically. We've been deceived. Yeshua was basically talking about that he is the Word, he is the Torah. And as we feed on the Torah, we fill up our lamps, ready for when he comes back. But we'll be the virgins with their lamps full, invited into the feast. It's so important to study the Torah, live the Torah, eat the Torah, drink the Torah, not communion. Communion really does nothing for us at all. In actual fact, we're celebrating a pagan ceremony, and it's basically sinning. Yahweh bless you and keep you. Yahweh make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. Yahweh lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Shalom.